the inception of the Premier League, and particularly in the last 10 years. And I think it'll come. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it should work. But there has to be something to help the referees out, because they're getting berated week in, week out. Yeah. Sometimes rightly so, and sometimes unfairly so. And they're human. And unfortunately, it again goes back to the sports science topic we discussed last week. The players are becoming super athletes now, and I'm not sure the referees are.
Yeah, and
mind you, they're not the 55-year-old guys who used to run around with their school teacher shirts on back in the 60s. So
yeah. And it's
all relative.
It's one of those things too, where these guys are having to go through, from what I understand, a very rigorous and regimented testing session just to become a line judge or a referee, for that matter. Certain speeds, mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile runs. They have to pass a lot of criteria before they'll even let them on the field in the Championship or League 1 or 2, let alone the Premier League. It's very difficult to crack into this, A, and B, have the knowledge to be a good referee. It's very difficult. And I'm not saying, those poor guys, to see what they see. I mean, imagine, where was that call made for Kane? I can't remember. 55th, 60th, 65th minute. The referee's probably already put in about 6 kilometers himself, 7 kilometers himself. You're half-winded, you're huffing and puffing, and then you got to make that call. It's a lot easier sitting in the pub, working on my third cider to make the call. So you got to give those guys credit. It is a thankless, unforgivable job. And when they do well, I will be the first to stand up and say, "Well done, referee," even if it's against us. But when they do bad, boy, they get unbiasedly slated by everybody, and it's a very difficult position to be in. But I have to say, you've got to be proud of them that they are part of the league, because for what they put up with and to have that profession, it's got to be extraordinarily difficult. But it just shows their passion for the match, for the game and for the match that they have. That's the way I feel about it. I don't know.
Well,
okay.
I don't believe in. I don't believe in being a statue. I think the game has to progress, and the subtle changes and ways to improve things. So I'm always intrigued by that discussion. Look, I think though, and I think we would all agree that
unfortunately
our play was such that this had to become a topic of discussion today.
Yeah. I know a lot of people also talked about the Vertonghen handball, where the ball came over and he had his hand up right. But anyway, let's talk transfer window.
Let's talk
again.
transfer window.
There was Orlando Hotspurs at Orlando Spurs had the question.
He's solid, by the way.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. He's a quality U.S. Twitter Spurs contributor.
And he had a question. How do you feel about the latest rumors? Who would you like to see here? In parentheses, or brackets, reasonably, because obviously we can be very pie in the sky, and I think we're a reasonable bunch. I don't think we look at, getting somebody that just is not going to come to Tottenham. So I'll pose that to you guys. Who do you think in the rumors that have been around this week, who's more realistically coming to the club?
Well, I think there's a definition of what's reasonable, and I think I'm gonna answer that within the context of some players have to be sold, but I'd like to see the boardroom decide that we're going to spend a little bit of money before we've sold everybody that we've targeted to sell. So I say pick 3 players of your choosings, raise about 15 to 20, and go spend 15 to 20. Then you can do that one of 2 ways. You can go find a striker that you think is worth 25 million. I'll let you guys debate on who you think that is. I have tremendous love for Lacazette, but there's others, Boney as well. Or you go get a commanding midfielder and maybe somebody else. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. I hope that whereas I always said, well, we need to sell players. We do. I just don't think we should have to sell 6 or 7 players before we do anything. I'd like to see us sell 2 or 3, maybe have a little bit of a net spend, and combine that with money that we've raised. That's my view.
But no name, Sam?
I think there's just it's just so hard to it's just so hard to have a really good discussion about it because there's just so many players. There's so much that we don't know. I mean, you go read 10 different papers and 10 different, somewhat credible sources, and they're all on about 10 or 15 different players. I mean, I think Boney would be wonderful. Benteke, I think, is intriguing, although he's having a terrible year. Lacazette is absolutely having a blinder. I agree with you that this kid at Palermo is interesting. We've been linked with this guy from Fenerbahce. I mean, in all shapes or form, there's justification for any one of these players, but there are, admittedly, 2 or 3 that seem to be on top of the list, with Boney being probably the highest.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got another question. In fact, Stephen at USAP09, who's from Newport in Gwent. Good to see that we've got Wales and Dublin represented tonight. He had 2 questions. First one, obviously we may or may not have done that well. Can you make yesterday look any better from several thousand miles away? You'll have to listen and determine if we did that. The other question he had is, how do we fill the Bentaleb gap right now? Or do we? Is it something that we struggle to do? We band-aid it? Because I think we are all crying out for that perfect central defensive midfielder. You've mentioned it earlier with the box-to-box, break your legs, Dave Mackay kind of person.
Right. And when you look at the person who that may be, I kind of mentioned Carvajal the other day, and again, I don't know that Sporting Lisbon is in a position where they really want to give him up. He's very valuable to them. I just don't see Schneiderlin, or that even type of player that's in the EPL now happening. So if it's going to come to us, it's going to come outside the league. And do we really have time to try to bed in a player into the system that maybe hasn't been a part of the system? So you kind of have to go backwards, check on players that maybe have played in a similar system or with Pochettino before, to try to find that midfielder. And if you can't find them, who do we have to replace Bentaleb? Wow.
But it's only a 30.
The closest player to him is Dembele, isn't it? It's horrible to say.
I think he holds the ball up arguably better than Bentaleb. He just does absolutely nothing offensively. I mean, I think he could. I just think that's only 30 days. I don't know. Well, here's a question that maybe help you answer that question. Is what would be more impactful, boss midfielder right now, or a star-like striker? Who gets bedded in faster, or does one?
I think the midfielder does. There's a lot of responsibility in that midfielder, but from a striking standpoint, right? God forbid Harry Kane gets hurt, and we're screwed. I mean, we are absolutely just done in. You are at that point looking at, do I put Nasser Chadli at striker? Or do I completely change the front end of the system and put 2 people up there, even if it's Adebayor and Soldado, to try to remedy that? But I think that the biggest need we have is still in the defensive midfield. Protecting the back 4 in Lloris is where we struggle, and I think that it causes us not to be the one-touch attacking type of team that we want to be when we play certain teams. Now, it's why this system worked so well for Pochettino at Southampton, is because you have to have that Schneiderlin type in the middle. Stambouli is supposed to be that, but he's not that yet. And until we get that, I don't know that you're going to find it in January and make it work for you this year. I don't think it's something we're going to find until the summer, if then. Yeah. And as we all knew going into this year, I think that we are all, as fans, pleasantly surprised where Tottenham is sitting, actually, to be quite honest with you. No one really expected us to be having these cup runs. No, we all expected to be in the position we are in Europe, but I certainly didn't expect us to be in contention, 5th, 6th, 7th, at that point, challenging for the league. Yeah. In some of these matches that I never expected. Yeah, us to beat Chelsea. We were still going to struggle against the top 4, and we're playing okay. We're doing really well. It's very difficult to answer that guy's question. He's not on the roster. To replace Bentaleb for a month, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pray Algeria gets knocked out of this competition as fast as possible, brother. That's what we're going to hope.
All right, we need some juju for Algeria.
Oh God.
But I think you're absolutely right. I really do. You know, I mean, something to be said. You just nailed it, I think. We really didn't think that we'd be here. What are we, 3 points off of fourth?
Yeah.
And we're in the new year already, and we're still in every cup. And so I think you make a great point there. You know, sell a few players, have a modest spend. I don't think you're going to be even physically able to find that player, even if you had both players, you know, i.e. the midfielder and the striker. So pick one, and you've clearly got a manager that can produce something out of not very much, because we can all agree we've got a bevy of pretty, I don't say marginal, but just okay, you know, defensive midfielders.
And I want to clarify. I think the position we need most is center defensive mid, and someone to protect that back four. The person that will bed in faster will be the striker, because a striker is a striker is a striker. Yeah. And if you can get him fed, unlike Soldado, I love the guy to death. He's not making it, man. He's just not making it for me.
That's probably what ends up happening, because I think there's more options, there's more identifiable options, both moderately expensive and really expensive at striker to choose from relative to central defensive midfielders or complete midfielders when you've got so many midfielders already that you can probably somewhat make do with.
And it's troublesome, because you even when you have this big pile up of fixtures, you really wish, and you would think these guys are world-class athletes, barring injury. They should be able to play every single one of these games, 75, 80 minutes, without problem. They did it in the old days. The problem is that you can say that they did it in the old days all you want, but I've read enough books, and Perryman has talked about it in The Boys from White Hart Lane, that when you got down to the last month of the season, every single person on that team was taking injections to play.
Yep.
And you can look at your team and say, we have enough, if we can keep the same 11, 12, 13 guys healthy, we should be fine. The problem is, every other team that's in contention for every cup, the Premier League top four, to make Europe in the top six, or whatever the case may be, they're all rotating 18, 19, and 20 players. You have to be able to do the same to keep up with everybody else. It's not that it can't be done. It's just you're not going to be able to physically finish out the season the way you want to. I don't care how good Pochettino's training and emphasis on endurance is. It's not going to help you if you don't have depth. And we've got to figure out a way to manifest our depth to where you can insert a body or two or three, what we're having to do now, and make it seem seamless. And that's what's going to take time. That's why everyone needs to be patient, because in 2 to 3 years, this thing is going to be awfully beautiful to watch.
All right, I guess I better chime in then. So we had been linked to a few players this week, notably Danny Ings as being one of the strikers.
Yeah.
Then the lad, is it Emenike?
Emenike, Carlos Baca, yeah.
God, he scores a lot of goals, that guy.
He does, but he's apparently got some baggage with some match fixing in the past. I'm not sure what the story on that is, but I did go look at his goals to game ratio, and it is pretty impressive. Now, granted, he's played in some leagues that aren't quite up there with some of the top leagues in Europe, so I don't know how he would do. I don't know a lot about him other than that. Then I heard, was it Andrzej Duda, Slovakian midfielder? There was some interest in him in the week. I'm not sure whether he's what we're after. And then, of course, Sam's man crush on Lassetti. So
and he's probably, I don't think he's going anywhere till the summer, when they can probably use him, win the league this year, and go sell him for $50 million, right?
I absolutely agree with you guys that we have a need. I'm not sure whether doing the band-aid for Bentaleb is what we're after, but Capu was poor. Stambouli, he had a decent game, but his final ball was poor. Dembele's was poor. Again, we'll get back to a game let's face it, we want to forget that. And we've seen better out of those guys, and I think we'll do okay without him, and would love to have him back. I don't think he's the be-all and saviour for us. We did okay when he was out for a while, but granted, we got on a run when he was in the team. To your point, Ken, we we need a striker as well.
Yeah.
So I think those are the two key areas. I know we said after last week's Euphoria, we don't need a striker. The way Eriksson is filling in behind, and you can see what happens when we don't have a good game, and the option isn't there to bring someone on either in the playmaker or the forward if we want to switch to 4-4-2. That's what we're really missing.
Yeah.
Is a good old-fashioned 4-4-2 up front partnership. Crooks, Archibald, Keane, Berbatov. That's what we're crying out for.
Well,
that's when we'll start banging in the goals to have that luxury, and we don't.
And we're missing the one that everyone's talking about on Twitter. Jermaine Defoe? Anybody?